What's up in War Eagle War Report family? It's your guy Ike Jones, and we are back with another morning drop. Today, we are talking about the quarterback situation for Auburn University. What does Payton Thorne need to do if he's going to be the starter for Auburn to get this offense revved up into high gear? Y'all know how we do right here, War Report style. Let's drop it on them.
You are now listening to the War Report. Drop.
Morning drop. It is Monday, December 18th. I am in here with my guy, Mike G, and we are talking Auburn quarterback. Always a hotly debated topic in football spheres is who is the quarterback, who is the best person to be the quarterback, all of those things. And we're here to talk about it this morning on the heels of Coach Hugh Freeze basically saying, listen, I trust my guys. My guys, I'm going to ride with them, and let's just talk about what was and what it needs to be. Before we get into the conversation, let's go ahead and do the necessary. You guys sharing this video out there on social media. We definitely appreciate you guys amplifying our voices out there so people can come in here and tell us we don't know what we're talking about. You can go in here and like the video. Please go ahead and give a thumbs up on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already so you can know when we're going live. Hit that notification bell. YouTube will decide when they want to notify you, but we're going to be going live all the time giving you this great Auburn content. If you're out there in the land of podcasts, please do us a favor and share that pod and give us a 5-star review. Mike, let's get into the conversation about Payton Thorne. Coach Hugh Freeze says the quarterbacks are judged by their wins, and Payton Thorne will be one of the winningest returning quarterbacks in the country next season. How you feel about that?
Like he's like the totality of his career, or like
yes.
Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah. I mean, listen, he had a really good first seat, like that 11-2, man, and not a lot of quarterbacks have an 11-2 season. At the helm of a Power 5 team under their belt. So that is a factual statement. That's a very factual statement. Is it a meaningful statement? And come on, Hugh. You also are only as good as the last thing you did in college football. So add that caveat, right? People remember what you did last, right? And what he did last was, 5 and 6 wins, right? The totality of his first year in the following 2 years combined. So now you can debate why that is. Obviously, Michigan State was a mess in his second year, and everybody on that team was affected by it. But some of those same problems followed him to Auburn. So there's room for improvement here. Hugh Freeze confirmed what we've been saying for over a month. Auburn is not going after a quarterback.
People for whatever reason feel as if we have a need to make up stuff, and I promise you, I wouldn't say it if I didn't feel confident in the fact that they're not currently in the market for a quarterback. Now, could that change at some point? Anybody who's saying anything contrary is not being honest, in my opinion, that they're looking for a quarterback. They're not. It could change, sure.
Yeah, look.
But as of today, they're not. And I don't know what would need to happen for it to change.
Learning my lesson from the Cam Coleman fiasco, when I was like, there's no way he's flipping. But if Jimbo gets fired, right, the only caveat to this quarterback conversation was that a can't-miss quarterback becomes available and is interested in Auburn.
And is going to come for the right price tag.
Correct. Yeah, right. And the money is right. All those things seem unlikely to align, which is, and whether people want to admit it or not, Cam Ward didn't move the needle enough to meet all those things. Riley Leonard, Grayson McCall, it was like Arch Manning. There were like 2 quarterbacks that fit the description in terms of, okay, we're going to break the bank because you're going to have to, if it's a top portal QB, to get somebody who, even though they may not have started a bunch at this level, will absolutely move the needle because they are better talent than the guys that we have in our room. Otherwise, you go with the guys you have, and I don't necessarily disagree with Freeze's approach.
I don't
Matter of
either.
fact, yeah, like so. I want to make that clear. I don't disagree with his approach. I think at some point you got to stop chasing guys in the portal and lean into the guys that you're recruiting from high school.
100%.
So, based on how they treated year one, I've adjusted my expectations for what kind of success they'll have in year two. I think fans should brace themselves for 7-5, and hopefully
I'm not there yet, but continue.
And hopefully it improve to Payton Thorne, because although I think that he will improve in year two of this system, the schedule gets harder, and that stretch that they have that I don't have the schedule in front of me, but like Oklahoma is dead smack in the middle, Georgia's in there, like I think it culminates with Kentucky. It's a tough stretch, and we'll see. But they don't have a stretch as easy as the 4-game stretch, which ultimately ended with them losing New Mexico State, as they had, in this year, next year. They don't have that. So it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, we're going to take a look at the numbers here and talk about what this means. Like I said, I just want to make sure we put that out there. Ike, we've been saying this for a month, and we'll always come out and say our sources tell us. But
yeah, and let's make a differentiation too.
Coming from nowhere, right?
Let's make a differentiation
really
about this whole thing too, because I want to make sure we're clear. Them looking into quarterbacks and them deciding no, none of these fit are actually different things. Yes,
Correct.
they've looked at. He said it himself. Yeah, we took a look at all the guys that were available, but they made a decision a few weeks ago. None of the available choices made sense from all the criteria that we've just laid out. Do they move the needle enough? Is the price tag right? And does it benefit us to take this risk on losing what we have, going after what we don't know whether or not it will work? And he also specified most of these guys in year one haven't lit the world on fire. So, like,
Right.
am I going to take a risk on a 1-year rental that I don't know is going to pan out? Or do I take the chance that year two will be better with the guy that I have? And they made that calculation a few weeks ago and determined, no, we're not doing that right now. And again, unless something changes, we're going to be where we are, which is with Payton Thorne. Speaking of Payton Thorne, let's take a look at Payton Thorne statistically last season, and let's look at his rankings versus what the other quarterbacks did around the country this last year. So these statistics are coming from PFF. These rankings are coming from PFF. So what I did was I looked at PFF grades and I filtered it down to just quarterbacks within certain criteria. So FBS, Power 5, and then the SEC. And I took out any quarterbacks that didn't start at least 50% of the snaps for their team, so that we have a fair rating for like if they only came in for like 3 plays, then we don't really care about that, right? So we want to look at, you started at least 50% of the snaps this season. This is where you were, and this is what Payton Thorne did versus them. So we got passing yards, yards per attempt, completion percentage. I put in the drop percentage so you can see the adjusted completion percentage, turnover-worthy plays, and then the overall PFF grade for that QB. Payton Thorne coming in at 1,671 total yards. That's good for number 88 in the FBS of the 133 available schools. 44th in the Power 5 and number 11 in the SEC in total yards. That's not awful, but it ain't great.
It's awful.
It's average. It's in the median.
Okay.
Now, if we're just looking at the SEC, it looks a lot more awful, right? Because you only have 14 schools.
Yeah. The reason why I say that is because when you look at these numbers, right, after there's very little separation in the Power 5 between 44 and 80, right? We're talking about 50 yards here, 60 yards there. We're talking about one pass. You take out one pass and he drops 20 spots, right? So, to me, this is not good. But let me add my caveat. I think most of this, the totals are on Hugh Freeze.
Here's number of attempts that he had.
He just did not throw the ball enough, man. He didn't throw the ball enough. And for somebody who is a low 60% completion percentage guy,
62.6% on the season as shown here.
Right, but before that, he was
Yeah,
even lower.
career wise, he's been right around what he did this year. It's not as if he
Yeah,
improved slightly over his career average, but it wasn't very much.
yeah. So you have to throw the ball in volume to be effective, and they
Yeah,
didn't let him do that. So I want to add that. That's why these totals are low. They just didn't let him throw the ball, which I poo-pooed that quite a bit. Why did you bring him here, knowing what his percentages were, and not let him throw the ball? This was always going to end up this way. For these numbers to be truly around median, like he would have had to have completed like 75% of his passes, which would have been a large ask, I think. And it made him one of the top QBs in all of college football.
yeah.
I mean, Jay Daniels won the Heisman, and he completed 73% of his passes while pushing the ball down the field quite a bit. So to get in the mid 70s, I mean, it was him, Bo, and I think one other person even close to the mid 70s. So this was not a reasonable ask of Payton Thorne to throw the ball 239 times on the season and get more than 2,400 yards passing. Because not only were the attempts not there, he didn't push the ball down the field a ton either. Right. So there was not a lot of opportunity to get lump yardage. Like this was always going to end this way, the way they managed him.
Yeah, and for reference here, Bo Nix led the country with 77.1% completion percentage. J.J. McCarthy was second with 74.2%.
Correct.
Carson Beck, as far as Power 5 quarterback, 72.3%. Graham Mertz, 72.1%, and Jaden Daniels at 71.1%. The other number that I want to look at here is the adjusted completion percentage, because this is the one that everybody's like, well, if he didn't have as many drops, he'd have looked better. And my statement always in retort to that is, of course, but every quarterback looks better if you don't have drops. And so where does he rank? Where his completion percentage does push up into that 70% if you adjust the completion percentage, but his ranking actually falls from 55 to 59, and overall in the SEC, he's still 10th. So if you adjust everybody's completion percentage for their drops, then he's still right around the same ranking nationally. And so I want people to stop being disingenuous in the conversation. And this, I can see the comment section now saying, you guys just want to crap on Payton Thorne. The numbers are what they are. What we're here to talk about is, what does he need to do to improve these numbers to get us into a better place? We'll get to that portion of the conversation, but we have to discuss where he is right now before we can talk about what he has to do to improve and whether or not we feel those are realistic expectations for Payton Thorne to be able to achieve. 70.7% adjusted completion percentage is still just okay. Like, that's not amazing.
Right. And the reason everybody gets the bump when you adjust is because every quarterback has receivers drop the ball.
Correct.
Right. The fact that he does not really jump up in terms of still 10th in the league. Right. And remember, we're filtering out quarterbacks who didn't take at least 50% of the snaps as well, too.
Correct.
So, there could be a quarterback in here 40% of the snaps and a better adjusted completion percentage. But the idea here is that if there is not a significant jump after you adjust, then you are not disproportionately affected by drops in comparison to your peers, right? So if you adjust for drops, for example, and he's like the third quarterback in the league,
right,
drops are killing him.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. But adjusting for drops doesn't move the needle. So, I think
which is crazy, because in the league, he had the second highest drop percentage, right? But it didn't move the needle because and to your point, they didn't throw the ball enough.
Right. But that doesn't mean that it's his fault, though, because
correct.
I know that's what people are going to hear, right? The system, there were a lot of other things that go into why this adjusted isn't better. Missed opportunities, some of the balls that never get thrown because there was pressure, or but the point is not to say, see, it's on Payton. No, we're saying it's not completely on the receivers the way people are trying to sell it. in terms of drops.
Which we will 100% dive into our wide receivers. That is a
Yeah.
morning drop we
Yeah,
have
that's a
planned
whole
already.
other headache, right? But you know, speaking of this independently, again, keeping the focus on quarterback, I'm going to say it one more time. If he doesn't jump in ranking after you adjust for drops, he is not disproportionately affected by drops in comparison to his peers, the way people will like you to believe sometimes. So it's just one of those things. It's a bigger issue for them, Ike, to fix the system, fix the route trees, fix all the other stuff. And you might actually see the drop percentage go down and the adjusted completion percentage go up quite a bit.
Yeah. Again, turnover-worthy plays ranked 60th overall, 25 in the P5, and third in the SEC, which is not great. PFF grade, he is down, again, 10th in the league, 30th in P5, and 54th overall in the FBS. So Payton Thorne, again, I think, to your point, not helped by the system, but he hasn't shown a ton of things that you look at and you say to yourself, all right, this guy is stellar as is. He needs to make improvements. That's clear. What things do you feel like, where do you feel like he needs to get his improvements done in order for this offense to be competent next year?
I believe Payton Thorne can make every throw. Just about. You know, I think he is a decent athlete, so he can make plays with his legs. Primarily, this comes down to, you know, what is he being asked to do and how well is he processing that information in real time? All right. As he will be the most, if not one of the most senior guys on this team next year.
One of the most senior quarterbacks in the
country. Yeah, in college football.
As far as number of starts, yes.
Correct, right? So when you reach that level, you have to be in a place where you are clearly making guys around you better. You can no longer really blame the talent around you unless it's blatant. And tell me, like, there wasn't just a ton to me this year that was blatantly on everybody else, right? I mean, maybe some things were blatantly on the coaches, but as far as guys on the field, you know, if it's not blatant, you see quarterbacks leave, go other places, and make that jump. But if they're getting a third, fourth, fifth year to start, you bring an experience back that not a lot of guys ever get the shot to even develop, let alone test it on the field for 4 or 5 years. So he's got to be a guy that makes guys around him better in his last year, especially if he has aspirations of playing beyond college football. You know, he's got to be a guy who figures out a way to throw guys open, who his ball placement is superior, and it gives it puts it solely on the receiver to either catch it or not. And after the discussion is that was a perfectly placed ball, they ought to catch that.
Right.
Period. That's not always been the case. That's, to me, that's where he has to improve. It's about seeing the field and getting the ball out to the guys in space, because not everybody's looking at the all 22 the way we are sometimes. So they don't see, like, look, man, there are guys open. You know, you panic in the pocket, you do certain things, and you do sometimes what Bo used to do, and you shorten the field, so you cut off your field division and your options, right? And then you're forced to either throw the ball away or try to make a play to the guys who are in crowded airspace. You know, Payton Thorne he just needs to see the field better, I think. It's not like he doesn't have the physical tools. Just needs to see the field better. And then the other half of that, obviously, is the coaching staff has to help him with what they're calling. Like,
right.
You know what I mean? He can only do so much based on what they're calling. And I don't think anybody would look at what they called this year and say that helped him much.
Yeah, and that was part of Payton Thorne's frustration, is he thought he was coming into a situation where he was going to be allowed to be the guy to go out there and throw the ball around the yard, and that wasn't happening through the first half of the season, and he was frustrated by it, rightfully so. Like, this isn't what I came here to do. I didn't come here to rotate snaps. I didn't come here to hand the ball off 80% of the time. I didn't come here really to be a running quarterback. I can do all of those things. That's great. But what I'd rather do is just come in here and actually be the guy that's going to throw the football And hopefully he gets that opportunity, and maybe with with him getting in here in the spring with these wide receivers and building that continuity, they'll build a confidence in his ability to go out there and do those things.
Absolutely.
All right, we will get into your comments because I know you guys are chomping at the bit to talk about this. But before we do, we have to get a word from our show sponsor today, and that is the great folks over at Manscaped. Always love it when Manscaped is the ad read because I get to say ridiculous things and nobody can say anything crazy about me for saying them. But Manscaped is the leader in below the waist trimming. They have the stocking stuffer package for you. Pause. Sansa, baby, the season for a fresh cut is finally here, and our sponsors today, Manscaped, the leaders in below-the-waist grooming, have just launched their 5th-generation performance package to help you avoid another silent night in the bedroom this year. Take care of your special snowflake with the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. Watch your South Pole shine like never before. Get the best stocking stuffer of all by going to manscaped.com and using code REPORT for 20% off plus free shipping. Mrs. Claus will thank you. If their boxer game is weak, take care of the chestnuts with Manscaped's Boxers 2.0, featuring their signature jewel pouch to keep you calm, cool, and collected. Again, get 20% off and free shipping with code REPORT at Manscaped. That's 20% off with free shipping at using code REPORT at manscaped.com. Say ho 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 to a well-groomed mistletoe with Manscaped. All right, over to the comment section we go. Get it jumped off with Haley, who says, I need him to go at least a few games without throwing a single interception. Every game this year, he threw at least one. It'd be nice.
Yeah, he didn't put the ball in danger a ton, I felt like this year.
No.
It just, again, with at the volume that he was at when it did happen, it was very frustrating. It stood out. When you're throwing the ball less than 20 times a game and you almost throw like 2 interceptions, it does feel terrible. So I put him down on the coaching staff there. And some of those plays and some of those games, he didn't have any choice but to put the ball in danger because he was trying to save the game. And a play had to be made.
Right.
They just had to put Payton Thorne in better situations. I don't, like I said, I'm not letting the coaching staff off the hook for the numbers that we just saw from Payton Thorne. 1,200 yards of regression year over year that's not a player getting worse.
And let's mention this too. You talked about Coach Hugh Freeze saying that he was, good with quarterbacks. He was going to develop quarterbacks. Listen, man, develop Payton Thorne this offseason. If he's going to be your guy, develop him and put a system around him that's going to allow him to be a better quarterback this offseason.
I don't know if you're developing a 4th-year guy though.
More so than 100%.
They just need to get better. Like
you can 100 because listen,
mental
a lot of yes
mental development. Okay,
100
right,
because a lot of the issues that you have with Payton Thorne, it's not in his footwork or his arm strength.
Fair enough.
It is, do you see the play that needs to be made? Get to your back of your drop and let it go. Are you processing pre-snap? You can help a quarterback get better at those things. It's if it was his mechanics in year 4 that was the issue, then I'd 100% say, look,
move
bro,
on. Move on.
He is what he is.
Yeah, right. They were. It's funny. Remember, former Auburn quarterback Chris Todd. He works with kids, and he talks about how they don't mess with throwing motion a ton.
Yeah,
with kids because you can completely ruin a kid's arm, and they mostly deal with footwork. They try to get the footwork right because a lot of the accuracy issues quarterbacks have are about bad footwork, not getting their body in the right positions to make throws, and like it. So,
by the way, I didn't look this stat up. I was going by what Haley said. Chris says that he did not have a turnover.
I was just going to say, like, it didn't feel like he put the ball in danger a ton. I just think it feels worse based on the volume of throws that he had. Yeah. So it may seem like that. And then some of the ones that he had, honestly, I can't put on him because he, like the interception at the end of the Iron Bowl.
Right. Okay, it's a Hail Mary situation at the end of a half.
Yeah, right. Yeah. He had to make a play. There were like 3 of those this year where it was just like got to make a play and threw an interception. I think he had one Hail Mary at the end of the half that was just like they got intercepted, but you're not really putting that on him. Yeah, so I'm with you. Like mental development, sure, dude. See Payton, see the sports psychologist, sleep air deprivation tent. I seen a dude do that. Any woo woo thing you could do to get your mind right for this next season, because your future at football depends on this.
Yeah.
If he plans to play beyond this year, he's got to show something, and it's not going to be like the scouts. I'm telling you, I swear to you guys, the NFL scouts do not give QBs the breaks that fans like to give their QBs when they evaluate the things that you can do apart from those external factors. How well did he control the things that were within his control? That's how they judge them. And you can do that without blaming the offensive line and the drop. You can still judge a throw, whether was that ball where it was supposed to be, regardless of whether the receiver ran the wrong route. Now, it takes an advanced eye to see those things.
Right.
Right.
And that's why I don't like this turnover statistic, right? Because sometimes it's not the quarterback. What he needs to improve on is just the number of times that he took. I've talked about this. This is my frustration with him. The number of times he took sacks or took off running when there were receivers available for him to throw the football. Way too many. And that you won't find that on a stat sheet anywhere of how many open receivers did a quarterback miss in the process of his progressions. And so that's the stuff that Payton Thorne has to get better at. And that's the stuff that I expect Coach Freeze to help him get better at is, listen, man, this he talked about it sometimes. This safety's rolling down in this way. This is what the RPO read needs to be. If they're in too high in this situation and we've got this route concept going on, this is where the ball needs to go. That's where your first read is supposed to be. He's got to get better in those sorts of things. And hopefully another year in the offense, he'll start to see those things a little bit more quickly.
Yep, agreed.
TK says, to be honest, improve his field vision. This is what we're just talking about. Even if that's even possible, stop deciding where you're going to go with the football or focusing on your first target.
Let me comment on this, right? Quarterbacks like Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, like some of the best quarterbacks. I used to listen to former Auburn coaches talk about this. The better quarterbacks that they faced, that's in the early 2000s when I was in school, in our team meeting, they would say, these are the guys that know where they're going with the ball before the ball is snapped. Now, what does that mean? It doesn't mean like the guy's locked on his first read. It means that he's seeing the defense, and he's the way those guys get to their third or fourth read is they're off of their first or second read before the ball is snapped. They see the coverage, and they're like, not there, going to this guy. That's how they know where they're going before the ball is snapped. It is an advanced level of quarterbacking that is difficult to achieve for anybody. So, when you have a guy going into his fourth year, you hope he can become one of those guys. And that's what they should be working with him on if we're talking about development. How to see the defense and know where to go with the ball, get your offense into the right play. Right. And then deliver the ball, because it's hard to defend that. It's hard to defend a quarterback that
who knows where to go with the football.
Look at and this is why you hear the announcers sometimes on TV talk about defensive coordinators disguising coverages, because when you play a good quarterback, you can't just go up there and line it up. He's going to eat you alive.
Right.
So you got to show blitz, and you got to back off, and you got to try to do all these creative things to fool him into thinking that you're doing something that you're not. And then hopefully he throws the ball to a spot. You've watched the tape, so you know where to be. That's how you beat a good quarterback. And Payton Thorne has to force defenses to do that in 2024 if Auburn is going to be better than a 6 or 7 win team.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
absolutely. Jonathan Boyson says, War Damn Eagle fan Hugh doubling down on the QB whisperer he called himself. So he thinks that Hugh Freeze is putting the faith in he and his staff to be able to get Payton Thorne into a better place next year.
Yeah, they put a lot of pressure on themselves with the way they managed year one. Because if it doesn't look better in year 2, that seat will absolutely be hot in year 3. I don't care how well they're recruiting. Guys need to play better at some point. Like this whole idea that everybody sucks somehow, right? When Hart said this, receivers suck, the line sucks, this sucks, that sucks. Like at some point, the guys in charge of them suck.
Yeah.
And so
if it's consistent, right? Like if
correct,
every
yeah.
year your quarterback sucks, your wide receivers suck, at some point in time, it's your
Yeah,
evaluation and
right.
decisions.
So by the time we get to year 3, this stuff you have to start to trend up next year. Now, I'm going to be clear about this statement. I believe they can win only 7 games and show that improvement because the schedule is tough. I do. I think you can win 7 games, and that was my frustration with this year was the way they managed it. You could have managed it a lot of different ways to actually move the needle for your team and still won only 6 games. Right? Like the way they got to 6 was disappointing.
Right.
Because it feels like they're taking a step back in year 2 offensively in terms of where they're starting from. You'll lose a lot of experience on your O-line. You know, you're going to lose most of your receiver room. You're going to be really young there. Like, I mean, how is this thing better in year 2? Yeah. And that's how I arrived at 7-5. A lot of people don't like that message, but I'm just like, tell me where Auburn is better in year 2 that you can see right now. Now, can they go out and perform better? Yeah. Sure, they can. Right? I would not project that now based on what they're doing. Now, obviously, there's a whole other portal period that has to be done, but there's not a ton of game changers coming in as freshmen. I love the recruiting. I do, but I think a lot of those guys are going to be able to help you significantly until year 2.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the good thing about how our schedule sets up for next year, how Auburn's schedule sets up for next year, is that you start with teams that you should be able to beat without having guys be game 1 ready. You have some time to get better, but by week 4, and yes, I am looking over the Cal game right now. Be mad. By week 4, you need to be ready to go out there and play ball.
Cal put 31 on playoff participant Washington. They managed 10 points versus Auburn.
Right.
10. Come on, man. Like, I'm sorry. Like, and that was me taking a shot at the pack. But Auburn's defense was good last year. Right? I know we're talking quarterback, but those guys were real good last year.
Brad Browning says first-year QB pass attempts under Coach Hugh Freeze, Ole Miss 368, Liberty 452, Auburn 238. Don't know if it was a lack of trust on PT or the passing game as a whole.
This is all I'm saying.
This is the stat right here.
I've been saying this for weeks now. Thank you, Brad, for putting this up. They did not let him throw the ball.
Right.
And to me, if you weren't going to let him throw the ball, you could have played Robbie or Holden.
Yeah.
If you're going to only let them throw it 238 times and still arrived at 6 wins.
The whole point in my mind was we're going to have the guy that we don't have to babysit.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So, but I'm not putting that on Payton Thorne necessarily. I just wonder. I'm wondering why they decided to manage it that way. Yeah. Now, obviously, there's a feeling internally that the talent around Payton was not at a place where they could evaluate him fairly, and I disagree with that. I thought he had average protection on the O-line, and at times most of the time, more than average amount of time to make a decision with the football, where you can say, hey, by the numbers, sure, you can say, but like we just went over the numbers, it just doesn't bear out that the talent around him is the reason that these things weren't good. It was some combination of him and what he was being asked to do, which is you, the coaches.
Yeah.
I would rather hear them say, we don't know how good he is because we didn't let him be good. That's a better statement, right? Than saying the guys around him suck, so we don't know how good he was. No, we sucked, so we don't know how good he was.
Yeah. P-Pass says they ran a conservative offense to save a defense that overachieved, and they did not adjust play calling to open it up. There's a couple of things in here that I find are interesting as word choices. The defense that overachieved. I don't know that our defense overachieved. I think the defense did what they were capable of doing.
Yeah,
these scenarios.
I would say from a depth perspective, maybe, yeah, like, you can be good and wear down, and the amount of times that they gave up 2 or less scores, to me was a bit of an overachievement given that they weren't very deep, right?
Or they didn't get very much help from their offense in staying on the field.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so like I would say that they overachieved based on the circumstances that they were put in, right? But they were always capable of this type of performance. Is your point, right? Like,
Yes.
yeah, they didn't overachieve their talent. They overachieved their circumstances.
That I agree with. And so the conservative portion of this, I don't know that unless you're talking about pace of play, right? In which Coach Hugh Freeze has been clear in saying we didn't want to go fast because we're not deep on defense. And so in that regard, hopefully we're able to go faster because they've achieved some additional depth along the defensive line, and guys aren't as worn out by the end of games because the offense is actually able to go out there and produce points. But listen, I think I would rather be in the LSU scenario where we're putting up a bunch of points on offense and we're able to go out there and let your defense make strategic plays to get you dubs, as opposed to feeling like we have to slow the offensive pace down and then hope that your defense stands up and doesn't give up more than 2 scores. Then that's the way that you win in football games.
Right.
So you got to give your defense a little bit of help with some points too, not just holding the ball longer. Like, let's put some points up on the board so that they don't feel like they live and die with every single play out there. All right, man. We are over our time. We appreciate you guys jumping in with us. So much more can be said about this, and I am sure so much more will be said before this is all said and done. As always, the Morning Drop is brought to you by our folks at Rogue Shop. Head over to rogueshop.com. That is America's #1 online dispensary. You can use code REPORT to get a little something off of your purchase. Whether you have issues with sleep, stress, anxiety, or pain, Rogue Shop has got something for you. So make sure that you head over there, rogueshop.com, use code REPORT. We'll be back at you guys with another Morning Drop tomorrow. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, share the content before you get out of here, and we appreciate all of those things. Until the next time, and as always, War Eagle.